If you're excited to see the Mk13 Mod 5 in some really awesome action, stick around because we've got a great video in the works here for you.
Hey there, and thanks for stopping by to check out my channel. If you're excited to see a Mk13 Mod 5 and some long-range action, then you're in the right place. I've got a new rifle, or at least it's new to me. First time out here really stretching the legs, and I wanted to bring you along for that experience. So stick around, we're gonna push the rifle well beyond 1,000 yards. Now, you think about the Mk13 line, really needs no introduction. There's a ton of great content on YouTube around the history of the Mk13, around the history of the Mk13 Mod 5, all the way through the Mod 7. So if you're curious about the lineage of this rifle, I'd encourage you to check out some of the other videos on YouTube. What I plan to do here is show you what she's capable of. So the Mod 5, from what I understand, was likely introduced in the late 2000s, maybe 2008, 2009 timeframe. The purpose of this rifle was to allow the snipers in the global war on terror a precision rifle to stretch out longer and further distances than they could with their .308 caliber rifles. So 300 Win Mag, back in the day it would have been shooting a 190 SMK, and then I believe they moved to a 220 SMK. What I'm going to be shooting today is going to be a 215 Berger. So my rifle, really kind of a cool history here. How did I acquire it? You think about the Mk13 Mod 5s, they're actually becoming kind of collectible, a little bit rare, and they have quite a bit of value, especially in the stock. No longer produced. So if you remember earlier on in the channel, I had an FN Scar 20S. I enjoyed shooting that rifle, but it really didn't scratch my itch. I found a member through one of the forums online that was willing to trade this Mk13 Mod 5 for my Scar 20S. I had to add some cash, again, because the value of these is quite high. But this rifle, to me, is really cool. So you think about the Mod 5, there's quite a few of the return kits out there, or the deployment kits. And from what I understand from the person that I purchased this rifle from, that's what this rifle is. So I understand this rifle is a return stock, so it very well could have deployed overseas. I also understand this is a contract barrel. Relatively slow twist by today's standards. I believe this is a 1 in 10 twist designed to run those 190s or 220s. You think about 30 cal now, probably 1 in 8 is pretty normal for the Magnums trying to push those heavy bullets out there. And then the receiver on this is kind of an old school Remington E prefix. So I understand that's in the ballpark of where the Mod 5s would have been when the military was running them. The E prefix, nothing really special about this. It's kind of got the old school bolt knob here. Really takes some getting used to compared to, say, my MRAD that I'm used to shooting. Also unique to this rifle would be the Berger, I believe it's called the IMUNS mount. This is what you would use, say there in the opening, to mount my PVS-30 clip-on night vision, or on the other side my Raptor to provide some IR light or some ranging capabilities. So this rifle, with the return or the deployment kit, there's a case that goes along with it, there's a ton of magazines. Really excited that I had the opportunity to acquire this rifle, and really excited to share it with you. So from here, what are we going to do in the video? Well, I'm going to run through just quickly what my rifle is. There's a couple of more details. I'm actually calling this a Mk13 Mod 5, maybe improved. I'll run through what's in my rifle, the load I'm shooting. Then we're going to move down to the 100-yard line. I'm going to give you a look at how she prints on paper, what I'm seeing for velocities with my 215 Berger load. Then we're going to move out and shoot steel. You've already seen me in the intro engage a 2/3 IPSC there at about 640 yards after dark. No problem, so we're going to start pushing further than that. Really quick, before we deep dive into the gear we're going to run on the Mk13 to make those impacts out to 1,000 yards and beyond, I want to chat about how I organize my gear at home. Now, earlier this year, I was able to partner with Hold Up Displays for this awesome wall display that you see behind me. I was able to customize this wall for my man cave to help me display my gear, as well as quickly and easily access and inspect it for content creation or going out to shoot with my buddies. So as you can see, I'm able to store rifles in a horizontal fashion. There's also a vertical rifle rack. So depending on how many rifles you have, you can customize your wall to your needs. Got mag holders up here in the corner, as well as the scope trees that I'm using over here to display my barrels. Prior to those being on the wall, they were displayed in a very cluttered fashion. Had no clue which barrels were where, had no clue which calibers were what. But as you can see, the way they're laid out right now, it's so quick and easy to pull a barrel off the wall, throw it in the MRAD, throw it in the MWS. Also able to put my suppressors in the same scope tree to quickly and easy access those. There's also shelving here that I use to hold my bullets, as well as reloading components so that I can quickly and easily access them when I need to work up a load right here on the reloading table. How was the install? It was pretty simple. So you send your dimensions off to Hold Up Displays. They customize the wall to your dimensions and your needs. And then they send out everything. All you need is a power drill and the ability to locate your studs and run in a bunch of screws. So the wall behind me here took probably 2 days for me to install, but as you can see, there's a lot of weight hanging on this wall, and there's really been no issues. The cool thing about this wall is my collection grows. I can add to it. I can add more hangers, more rifle racks, more scope trees, really able to tailor the wall to my needs. So if you're in the market to customize your man cave and really impress your buddies, check out Hold Up Displays, work with them on your own wall to display your gear. Now from here, let's get back into the video and chat about how we're going to make those hits at 1,000 yards and beyond. Let's take a close-up look at the gear we're going to run in this video. Now earlier I mentioned my Mod 5 is built on an E prefix Remington 700 receiver. I understand that's correct for say an early Mod 5. And then I have the contract barrel as well as the return AICS chassis. In my opinion, this AICS chassis is what makes the Mod 5 so iconic. If you're trying to clone a Mod 5, I know you've found them for sale online on the used market. They're crazy expensive. When they come up for sale, they're extremely rare. And like I mentioned, I'm so excited to be able to land this rifle and share it with you. This is really a dream for someone like myself that's really into, say, the Global War on Terror rifles or the iconic rifles of that time. Now, in the intro I mentioned I'm calling this rifle a Mod 5 Improved, and you're probably wondering why that is. Well, the first piece will be the trigger. So this rifle came with a Remington 700 trigger, single stage, a little bit heavy, but clean break. It was a nice trigger. But I wanted to try a Triggertech, so I went ahead and installed a Triggertech 2-stage trigger. Really crisp break, gives you the ability to adjust that pull weight. So far I'm happy with it. The one thing I'm not sure about, over here on the side of the bolt, there's the bolt catch or maybe bolt release. When I push the bolt handle forward sometimes, the tail of that actually pops up, blocking the bolt handle from going forward. You saw that happen in the intro. I'm not sure if that's the result of maybe my trigger install, the way I position that spring, but I need to dig into that. So when you see me fumbling with the bolt, it's because it's hitting the tail of the release over here, and I'll dig into that. The next piece that I believe makes this improved would be the suppressor. So if you're trying to clone a true Mod 5, you know the Knight's Armament Mark 11 can is almost impossible to find, and when they show up for sale, they're crazy expensive, even more so than this chassis. There's one in Gunbroker right now for something like $7,800, which is just absurd for a suppressor. So Griffin Armament has been a supporter of my channel for quite a while now. They have the MGL11 suppressor, which is awesome for a Mark 11 Mod 0 clone, or in this case, a Mark 13 Mod 5, because they both use the same mounting system. Now this Mark 13 Mod 5, the muzzle is profiled to match what the Mark 11 Mod 0 is. So the end of the muzzle is profiled to be the correct diameter for the can to index off of. And then on the barrel, there are little divots that are cut for the gate latch to drop in. So you're able to use a Knight's Armament Mark 11 Mod 0 suppressor, or in my case, the MGL11. The MGL11 is currently available at a much more reasonable price. And what you're gonna see, or what I've found shooting this rifle, it's really nice. This is a great can. It actually allows me to shoot this 300 Win Mag without ears, without any pain. I'm super excited about the MGL11. You saw in the night footage there, a little bit of flash, but in my experience, that's normal really with any suppressor that you shoot under night vision. So the suppressor, I feel like, is another piece that makes it an improved rifle. The next item will be the arca rail right here. So this arca rail is something I added when I got the rifle. It's from Sawtooth Rifles. I actually got the full length, which sticks out here basically to the end of the Badger mount. This thing is awesome because it allows me to mount to a tripod, allows me to mount this MDT double pull sky pod. Really, arca, that's the way of a modern precision rifle. This rifle didn't have that back in the day. I don't think arca was a thing back in the day. So adding this to me adds a ton of capability and performance. Really excited to have this piece from Sawtooth Rifles. Finally, the optic I'm running on this rifle is going to be my Arken EP5 5-25. In the Arken, I believe it's their new titanium rings. So I decided to go rings for this build just to give it that more iconic look. And why did I install the Arken 5-25 on it? Well, number one, I'm happy with their optics. Number two, every time I run an Arken, I get a ton of comments around they don't hold up, they don't perform. So I decided to put this rifle, or put this optic on a rifle I'm going to be shooting a lot, and find out how it performs. I'm going to try to put a ton of rounds through this, see how it holds up. And Arken has been a supporter of my channel. So I'm excited to run the EP5. I had this thing laying around. That's the nice thing about the Arken at the price point. You can get a lot of Arken scopes for the price of one premium optic. So I had this thing in the safe, decided to throw it on the rifle and bring it out here and see how it performs, how it holds up on a 300 Win Mag. The final piece that I believe makes this an improved build is going to be the bullet I'm running. So back in the day, the Mark 13 would have run the 190 SMK or the 220 SMK. Great bullets, they can get out there, no problem. But I decided to try the Berger 215. I didn't have any 190s or 220s on hand from Sierra. Again, they're a supporter of my channel, and I'm hoping to be able to run some of their bullets as soon as I can maybe get some in. But for this one, initial range trip, I wanted to try the 215 Berger. That's a high performance, high BC 30 cal bullet that should work in the slow, I believe it's 1 in 10 twist of this rifle. So what you're gonna see me shooting today is my hand load. It's in virgin Lapua brass. So basically I went out to the range, did a quick powder test and a quick seating depth test, happy with the results, and decided to go start to stretch it out to distance, burn through that virgin brass so I can work up a true load. The other items you're gonna see me run here in the video will be my bag from Fulcrum, as well as my tripod from 2Vets. You've already seen me shoot off of that there in the intro. Ear protection is going to be from Warbird Pro. These are rechargeable electronic ears. They work quite well. And then on the other side of the rifle here, I actually have my Raptor. I use that in the nighttime footage for IR illumination. It pairs well with the PVS 30. You can also use it for ranging functions. So with that, that's enough talking. Let's move down to the 100-yard line. I'll give you a look at how she performs on paper, how my load's performing, and then we'll push out on steel at distance. First up, let's take a look at how the rifle performs at the 100-yard line with this initial 215 Berger load. What we'll take a look at here is group size across 10 rounds. I shot 2 5-round groups consecutively. We'll check my zero, and we'll take a look at what my velocity is doing. So first thing out of the gate, my cold bore shot landed right here, just to the left of the lower right dot. My second round then landed right on top of it, and I'm thinking, man, my group's gonna land a little bit to the left, which was strange because I just zeroed this rifle the other day, and it was pretty much spot on. Then we saw the next 3 rounds shift over and land just a little bit high of the black dot, really tight 3-round group right there. So I'm thinking we saw those first 2 rounds, and then the next 3, a little bit of a shift there, maybe as we got some heat in the barrel. I then loaded up and fired 5 more rounds consecutively after that first round group, so the rifle's getting some heat in it. And what we saw is those 5 rounds landed right here above the lower left dot. Now, what do we have for group size? The first group right here, if we measure from the edge to edge, we're right at 1.25 inches, maybe a smidge over 1.25 inches if we take all 5 of those rounds together. And then the next 5 that I fired, those are gonna land just under 1 inch, probably call it like 0.8. Now overall, the 10-round group, including my cold bore and my second round, that's about a 1.25 to a 1.3 inch group or MOA group, which isn't that great. But if we take a look at the 3 rounds that we're touching here and the 5 rounds that I fired, that's actually pretty solid. So what we have right there is 8 rounds into easily under 1 inch after we got some heat in the rifle. So I'll have to spend some more time working with the rifle to figure out if this shift is normal or if this is maybe a one-off, but it's what we got for results out here. Velocity wise, looking pretty good. We saw an average of like 29-23 across the 10 rounds with a spread of 25 and an SD of 7.2. So when I try to stretch out to distance later, that'll put us in the ballpark. We'll be able to make some impacts. Yep, maybe the group's a little bit bigger than I'd like to see when you measure all 10, but it looks like the consistency's there. The velocity spread is pretty solid. A G7 BC of 0.381, I'll plug that into the calculator, and I think what you're gonna find is we'll be able to make some hits to 1,000 and beyond without much trouble using this Mark 13 Mod 5 and the 215 Berger. So from here, let's go ahead and stretch out on steel. Now you saw there, the 100-yard line, my zero was just a smidge high, so I went ahead and bumped that down 1/10. And in the intro, you've already seen me shoot a 2/3 Zipsic at 640 yards under night vision. Had no problem connecting there. Went 5 for 5. Now I've got the same 2/3 Zipsic out there. It's at 820 yards. So let's go ahead and put a handful of rounds on it. Now with the 215 Berger, it's calling for 4.7 mils, which I will dial on. And it feels like there is a slight left to right. So I'm going to favor left just maybe 0.5 to right edge. So call that like 0.3 to center. Actually, there's quite a bit of mirage. Let me go 0.5 to center.
Should have went with my original call. .25. Pack. Back. Pack. Impact. So as you can see, 820 yards is no problem for the Mark 13 Mod 5. Let's push further. With no problems on a 2/3 Zipstick out to 820, I've moved back to 1020, still on the 2/3 Zipstick. 1020 calls for 6.7, which I will dial on. And very little wind out here, a little bit of a left to right, so I'm going to favor left, probably in that 0.5 ballpark. But something I did want to note, when I get behind this rifle, I realize there's some play in the stock that could have been my windage arrow at 100 yards. So if I get on this target and I push the stock to my left, it's tight. If I pull it to my right, so there's a little bit of play in this stock. It looks to be about 1.5 mils. So I'm going to have to make sure when I'm shooting that I am consistent in how I'm holding the stock. Long term, I'll have to figure out how to take up that slop because that is not optimal for precision shooting. So with that, we've dialed up our 6.7. Camera is on. We should be good to go. So let's favor left, 0.5. Impact. First round. There's a lot of mirage out there. Off the left edge. Cut our wind back. Let's go 0.5 to right edge. Pack. Off the left edge. Impact. So 1020, no problem. Let's keep pushing further. I've pushed back to 1,405 yards and put up my full-size Zipstick. There's a ton of mirage out there right now, so it's going to be pretty tough looking through the scope, but let's send some rounds, see if we can connect. Elevation is calling for 11.2 mils. Which I have dialed on. And we're making our impacts up there at the 10, 20 yard line at like 0.3, 0.4 mils. So I think I might just go 0.5 to center on the full-size Zipstick. Ooh. A lot of stock movement again. That's just me pushing on the joint. So I'm going to have to push into it and try to hold it steady. So let's go 0.5 to left edge. Okay, just off. So I don't know why, there we go, a bolt release pops up like that. So looks like 0.5 would have been the move, huh? Impact. That stock wobble is annoying now that I recognize it. Impact. 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 Man, that's fun. Full-size IPSC, 1,400 yards, Mark 13 Mod 5. You'll notice I haven't been wearing ears. Once I got comfortable with this can, it is really not loud at all. It's very comfortable to shoot without ears out here in this wide open space. So I think that's as far as I'm going to shoot today. It's harder for me to find a longer range spot just yet. Maybe in a future video we'll stretch this thing out to a mile or more. You'll have to let me know in the comments if you want me to do that. But let's move into a wrap up and I'll give you my thoughts on my initial impressions with the Mark 13 Mod 5.
Well, there you have it. Quite a few rounds downrange through a Mark 13 Mod 5. This might be some of the most Mark 13 Mod 5 shooting content on YouTube. You'll have to let me know in the comments down below what you thought about seeing this old warhorse in action. I can tell you as the shooter, my first day on the range with this rifle, stretching it out to distance, I had an absolute blast, and I appreciate you sticking around to join me for that experience. Now, while you let me know what you thought, I'll give you just a couple of minutes and summarize my experience shooting the rifle. First up, we moved down to the 100-yard line where I fired 10 rounds in 2 consecutive 5-round groups. Remember, the first 2 rounds landed just to the left of the black dot, and then the next 3 stacked just above the black dot. So there's a horizontal shift there. That group measured something like 1.25 inches. I then moved to the left dot and fired 5 rounds into a group that stacked about 0.75 or 3/4 MOA. And those 10 rounds averaged 29-23 feet per second with a spread of 25 and an SD of something like 8. So overall, I feel like there's solid accuracy potential in the rifle, and I'm happy with the velocity performance out of that load. 29-23 with a 215, that's pretty fast. I don't think I'm seeing any pressure signs, no flattened primers, no heavy bolt lift. I think I'm in a good spot as far as velocity goes. When I get into some once fired brass, I'll probably fine tune that a little bit more. I want to get that extreme spread down, maybe push distances further. According to the calculator, that 215 Berger load is actually supersonic out to about 1,800 yards. So if you want to see me stretch it out further, run this Mark 13 Mod 5 out to say a mile or beyond, let me know in the comments and I'll work on it. I'll try to get that extreme spread down. I'll try to fine tune that accuracy, and then I'll bring you along for an extreme long range journey. Now that horizontal spread I thought was strange, but later on in the video I think I figured it out. If you remember at the 1,000-yard line, I realized this chassis or this stock, folding is awesome, but there's a bit of play there. I measured it at roughly 1.5 mils, which is something like 5 inches at 100 yards, or maybe 50 inches at 1,000 yards. So I got to figure out how to take up that slop. Once I realized it was there, I used my firing hand to push in on the pistol grip to make sure the stock was nice and tensioned and held in place, but I don't think that's a good long-term solution. I'll see if I can figure out something to wedge in there, maybe to take up that slop. So get the velocity extreme spread down, get the accuracy fine-tuned by taking up the slop in the stock. I think that'll fix that horizontal spread. Then maybe we'll push further if you want to see it. Now the first steel I shot was actually last night, that 2/3 IPSC at 640 yards. No problems connecting. I think it was like 3.2 mils. That's a chip shot for this rifle. It's kind of fun though to run this old gal at night with the PVS-30 clipped onto the Badger. I believe this is called an IMUNS, and the Raptor. What I realized, there's not a lot of real estate there. There's a little bit of interference between the PVS-30 and the Raptor, so I have to actually mount the PVS-30 first, swing the lever to mount that, and then mount the Raptor, which also has a long lever to tension it. If I mount the Raptor first, I was hoping to mount the Raptor, zero it, and just leave it on the rifle. If I do that, then I'm not able to put the PVS-30 on because there's not room for the lever to swing and clear the Raptor. So it's a little bit kind of goofy to have to remove and reinstall the Raptor to run the PVS-30, but it is what it is. There's not a lot of real estate there, and at the end of the day, it's not a big deal. It seems like today, when I put the PVS-30, or I put the Raptor back on the rifle, it seemed like it was zeroed up enough that I could range and make my impacts out there at distance. Then today, first steel I shot was 2/3 IPSC at 830 yards, had no problems connecting. I believe we had one round that I had to correct off of, and then I had my impacts after that. 10 or 1,030, again, no problems connecting on a 2/3 IPSC, and then out there at 1,400 yards, no problems connecting. I believe we had one round, went off the left side if I remember right. I had to correct, and then I had my next 4 rounds were impacts on a full-size IPSC, 1,400 yards. Super fun with this old rig. I mean, I've seen so many of these in action on YouTube or on some of the Global War on Terror content. I'm really excited that my rifle seems to be performing up to my expectations. So from here, I'm going to develop a better load, get that velocity running a little bit better, maybe try a 190 SMK or a 220 SMK to be a little bit more clone correct. But I'll bring you along for that experience. If you have something in mind that you want to see me do, let me know and I'll try to work on it. Now, on Instagram, I got a really cool comment that was asking me about the suppressor and how it returns to zero and how it impacts my zero shift, suppress versus unsuppress. I actually planned to test that. So after I shot today, I moved back down here to the 100-yard line where I fired 5 rounds through the suppressor just to verify my zero. It was good. And then I was going to remove the can to show you suppressor shift and then how long it took to return the accuracy after I reinstalled it. But what I found is I actually can't get that suppressor off. That suppressor is currently welded on the rifle. So to get the gate latch up, I actually had to use a pair of pliers and basically beat from the bottom up. I was able to get the gate latch lifted, but then I was never able to actually remove the can. So while there's a little bit of rattle in the suppressor, if I hold the rifle vertical, you can hear it just rattling a little bit, not much. It is wedged on there very tight. I believe it's quite tight here on the back side where it kind of runs through the gate latch portion. So when I get home, I'll remove the can and maybe I'll do that testing in a future video if you want to see it. Got to give a shout out to D. Wilson. So when I got this rifle in, I actually couldn't mount the MG11. The outside diameter of my muzzle was just a couple thousandths too large, so I sent it to D. Wilson. He profiled it down so that that MG11 mounts up just about perfect, just a little bit, maybe snug, not too tight though that it's a pain to put on and off other than when it's got a ton of carbon in it. So thanks D. Wilson for taking care of it. If you need work done to your rifle, hit up D. Wilson. He's great on LMT, or in this case, Mk13 Mod 5, a little bit of custom work there. So overall, my experience shooting the rifle, this thing is so easy to shoot accurately. Once I take up this slop, it'll be no problem to make impacts out there at distance. Very light recoiling. This is a heavy rifle. I really wasn't sure what to expect for it from recoil. It's almost nothing. I fired quite a few rounds today and feel nothing in my shoulder. No problem spotting impacts, whether it's off the tripod or from prone. Recoil was not bad. The weight of this rifle and the can on it really make it quite the pleasure to shoot. This suppressor, I believe it's right there at hearing safe for 300 Win Mag. That is crazy to me. I fired quite a few rounds. You saw them on video, no ear protection. I wanted to see what it sounded like. I bet I fired 15 to 20 rounds without ears and really no discomfort. So it's quite impressive to me that MG11 is able to take a 300 Win Mag, 26-inch barrel I believe this is, and make it hearing safe. Just a joy to shoot. I am really impressed with that can and how it's shooting. The Arken, again, I know there'll be a ton of commenters out here. Why did I put an Arken on the Mk13 Mod 5? It performed. It returned to zero. So as I saw there at the 100-yard line, when I came back to try to do the suppressor test, I was zeroed up. So that's great. Seemed to track well the elevation that my calculator called for, dialed it, made my impacts out there at distance. Now, I want to mention on Arken, if you're someone that's looking to support my channel, there's a great way to do it, and that is by using my code with Arken. So if you use my code, MULLETS, when you make your purchase on Arken gear, that's going to give me a little bit of a kickback and help out the channel. Every little bit helps. I appreciate Arken for partnering with me on the channel. I actually am quite impressed with their products. I would spend my own money on the Arken scopes. This 5 to 25 has been a great performer. The 7 to 35 that I've made some videos on has been a great performer. Again, we're going to put some more rounds on this just to see if they hold up or see if I get some experiences that some of the commenters have mentioned. But if you're in the market for Arken gear, check out my code MULLETS, as it'll give you the best discount possible, and it'll give me a little bit of a kickback to help creating content for you. Other ways you can help the channel, if you've made it this far, I want to ask you to help me by liking this video, commenting, letting me know your thoughts down below, and subscribing. That's probably the most impactful way to grow this channel. Lets YouTube know that you want to see more content from me and encourages me as I watch that subscriber count grow. I'm trying to get to 100,000 here. By the end of the year would be great, but early 2025 would be awesome. I want to get to 100,000. We're growing every day, and each of you that have supported the channel, I appreciate that support. So from here, if you enjoyed this content, let me know what you thought about it. Let me know what you'd like to see me do in some future content with this Mk13 Mod 5. This thing is so fun to shoot. I'm going to keep making videos with it. I just want to make sure the videos are what you want to see. So I appreciate you taking the time to watch my video, and I hope to join you in my next one.